Hey guys, so today we are painting these two pine cones on this pine branch. If you're interested in doing this, stay tuned. I'll let you know what supplies you need. Thanks for being here. Hi guys, and welcome to my channel. My name is Tammy, and if you've never been here before, I'm so glad that you have joined us. And if you've been here before, welcome back. So I just wanted to go over what we're doing today. We're going to be painting some pine cones. This is just a little sample, not specifically what we're doing today, but we're going to be following more this live example that I picked from my backyard. So the supplies that you need today are, first of all, watercolor paper. It doesn't have to be expensive. Your watercolor paints, a jar of water that I have over here, a spray bottle to wet your paints, reactivate them, and then a paper towel or a rag to be able to dab off your brush. And then for the brushes today, I have a number 6 round, and I have a lovely liner brush for details. If you don't have that, use a number 2 or a number 1, and a pencil and an eraser to sketch out. All right, guys, let's get started. Okay, so starting our basic sketch, we're not going to be super worried about how everything is, but we're just going to do a basic, use this as a basic outline or idea of what we're painting and drawing today. So I'm just kind of moving my my pencil lightly over the paper, creating a little bit of a kind of a wonky branch. I'm going really light, but hopefully you guys can pick that up. And then our branch just kind of shoots down like this. Okay. And so we have a lot of pine needles coming off of here and then going all the way down. And as you can see, these pine needles are connected right here directly to this stem of this branch. We'll have pine needles down here also. So I like to sketch that out just so that we have those basic things there. And it's okay if you have lines at the end. You don't need to worry about it. People get really worried about lines, and I say, you know what, they don't bother me. So if you don't like lines, you can erase them, make them a little lighter before you start to paint. We have our little pine cone. We're just gonna, he's detached. We're just gonna attach him right here. Just kind of have this little pine cone shape. Kind of like, this is an oval shape with sort of a, kind of a rounded bottom point here. And then we're gonna do one more little pine cone here as well. And just, it's a little bit smaller, a little bit shorter guy. Now, if we take this branch, you'll notice they were tucked away, but there's all these pine needles right here. So we're gonna wanna include those as well in our sketch. And that would be, they're all attached up here as well. So I'm just gonna kind of go at a diagonal like I was before and add those in. Those will be behind, and we can just kind of cradle our lovely little pine cone babies over there. I'm just kind of end the branch right there. Okay, now we are ready to start painting. So I've moved things around so that you guys can see exactly what I'm doing. I'm gonna dip into this well that has some brown paint, and then let's dip into some blue and mix that together. We're gonna create this really nice gray color, and you can achieve that by using dark blue and brown, as you can see. Adding lots of water, and we can always go back and add more color if we need to, but it's nice to just kind of go light first, and you can add in other tones of color as well. You can add in other shades. We can do some brown in there also. So we're just kind of following this light sketch that we have, and with our little pine cone babies kind of right next to it. Okay, so now I'm going to dip into this medium brown color and just gonna take some of that using this wet on wet technique. So you're putting wet paint into wet paint, and just gonna add in some brown just for a little variation in this stem or branch right here. And we'll let that dry and do its thing. We're gonna start with our pine cones. It's very simple. As I showed you the picture before, we're just kind of doing this little abstract pine cone. So let's go ahead, and we're gonna take several different colors. So we're gonna do some brown, so dipping into that, and just taking your lovely brush, we're just gonna start adding in some little shapes. I did some corn like this a little bit. I kept the brush strokes a little bit more defined than this, but that's what we're doing today. This is very simple, pretty easy. I know everyone can try it and do this. And I'm just gonna keep it a little bit more sporadic. I don't want just really even brown on this side and on this side, and I want to keep it a little bit random. Nature is very random, and we're going to go outside of our lines as well so that our pine cone is going to look a little spiky and not have these really round edges. Okay, so for now, I'm going to rinse my brush, and I'm going to head over to the yellow section on my palette, and we're just going to get some of that yellow color. It's really bright and vibrant, beautiful. I'm going to add some of that too. I think that'll be a fun little contrast with our pine cones. That's what they're called. All right, and you're going to leave some white space because you want to have that contrast of some light shining through. I think it looks really pretty just to keep some of that, the white of the paper. So just think about that as you're adding in your color. And then let's also do kind of this reddish brown, brick brown color, and add that as well. I really love this shade. And because it's watercolor, these are going to spread around and look quite lovely together. And a little bit more down here. And because it is a pine cone, it tends to be pretty brown. So we're going to go over and probably add a little bit more brown too. But just have fun with this. This is a very abstract way to paint a pine cone. And I can't say that I invented this method because I've seen this method done from other artists on YouTube, but we are doing our own composition today, and we are doing our own colors and our own brush strokes as well to make it unique to us. So there you go, adding that in. We still have a lot of white space. I'm gonna go ahead and dip directly into my brown. So we're getting a really concentrated amount of paint and just continue to fill in some of those edges. I don't think that the white space in the edges needs to be there. So if you have really concentrated paint, it's not going to be spreading along the other wet paint as much as if you had a very wet paint. So the way this whole thing works with paint is the paint will spread where there is water. And if there is no water, it won't spread on its own. And so there is water here, but the paint I'm putting down doesn't have a lot of water to allow it to spread around. So that's why we can keep the paint roughly in the places that we want them. Okay, I'm gonna rinse our brush off, dab it on our rag, and with this really wet brush, I'm just going to diffuse out some of these areas. I want this to be a very loose pine cone. I don't want it to be so structured and, you know, contained. I've got too much water. Take your brush, dab it on a paper towel, and then lift color. That's a very nice way to be able to fix if you have too much paint, too much water down. I can even take my damp brush and I can lift some color off of here if I'd like to leave some lighter color, almost some white space there. So that's a fun way to be able to do that. All right, keep working with your damp brush and just diffuse some of these lines. And at that point, you're gonna create some more spiky parts on the edges. And that's good. I like that. I like that look. So painting loose is really hard to do. I feel like it takes a lot more skill, even though it seems like it would be maybe easier. I'm gonna add some more of that red. Really concentrated, okay? Just dip into your palette, grab that red. And you could add pink in here if you wanted. You could add some more yellow. Just make this really what you want it to be. A little more yellow. Okay. So this is still maybe a little bit damp. Yeah, a little bit damp. So you can continue to use that wet on wet method and add in some color. And when it's still wet, and we've already covered up this branch over here, which is totally fine. Sometimes that happens. You have an idea of what you want to have happen, and then you change it while you're working. And that's the beauty of art. So we're just adding in some more colors, some brown. I did some yellow. And there's a gray underneath, and so some of that might show. You can go ahead and spread some of that, blend it together. And we want this branch to be just kind of lumpy too. I think I want it to be more lumpy than it is, so you can just take your brush and spread out that paint a little bit. I'm gonna add in some concentrated red brown as well, and just wanna make that look kind of fun. So if I don't blend this, then it's just gonna be kind of streaky, which is fun. We're gonna add in our little connectors to our little pine cones so they are attached to our branches. Okay, the really fun part, we take our liner. I find this to be fun, whether I'm painting veins on flowers or leaves, or painting maybe some leaves on palm trees. I love using my liner for these details. So you're just gonna remember, we're following our sketch and we're just painting outward like that. Really thin needles. If you do it this way, it's going to look very realistic using a brush that's really thin, but you can use a number 2 or number 1. Just use what you have. If you don't have one that thin, you know, consider investing in one. They don't cost that much, and they really are, well, it's something that I use a lot, at least in the paintings that I do, with a lot of flowers, with landscapes too. You can do some really beautiful grasses from the beach or in the forest, and it's just a nice old brush. I use it in a lot of my paintings. I can't say I use it every time in every painting. I'm not sure about that, but in many paintings. So now I'm just gonna turn my paper. It's okay to do that. I just wanna let you guys know. Some people think you need to paint from all angles, and that's not true. You can paint however you want to paint and however makes sense to you, okay? I'm giving you permission to turn your paper if you want. If that makes me less of a skilled artist, it doesn't bother me. It allows me the freedom to paint how I need to paint. And that's what we need to do. So I'm dipping into my really saturated green here, making it a little bit darker because we have less water. We are going to reflip our paper now to right side up and continue adding our pine needles, but with this darker concentration. So just for you, if you're not sure what I did there, dipping into our darker paint, adding more pigment to the paint we already had down. Look, it's kind of streaking during dry brushing strokes, which is a fun texture. But if it's doing that and you're not really able to get the marks, then you can add more water and it will stop doing that dry brushing effect. But I do like the effect of dry brushing. It's really pretty. All right. And then we have some needles and they're originating over here. And so we're gonna add those from behind our little pine cones, adding in our lovely darker hues, our darker values. All right, and we can do this too from this way. So as you can see, it's coming together, and this can make a really great Christmas card if you guys want to. I already made Christmas cards on my Etsy. Also, if you guys are interested in supporting me as an artist, you can check out the link to Patreon in the link in this description of this video. Not only does that help support me and join our lovely community, when you join our lovely community, but it also gives you access to bonus content, to exclusive full-length tutorials. So if you're wanting to learn more and take your watercolor journey to another level, definitely consider supporting me through there and signing up for your own benefit. And we have a lot of fun over there. So getting this all ready. So it looks like it's coming together really nicely. We still have a little bit of a finishing touch to add as well. So I like how it's kind of darker here and then going out and getting lighter as it goes. I'm going to take my brush that has a little bit of that reddish brown paint on it still, and just a little bit, adding a little bit more to this. Some green spread out, so I'm just kind of evening that out. And then lastly, I'm going to take from my dark brown paint, again, it's very concentrated, so I'm just going to add a little bit more as this is starting to dry up. And because it's not so wet anymore, you're going to get more of a thicker concentration of color. And this is a great way to add more details that you'd like to, if you want to darken up something. So watercolor does dry one shade lighter than when you paint it. And so just keep that in mind when you're painting, so that you can go dark enough with your color if you want it to look a certain way, knowing it's going to lighten up a bit. Okay, so there we go. And then lastly, I'm going to take my brush, we're going to dip into our green paint, and we're going to do splatter on this. And splatter is one of my favorite things. If you check out my Etsy, you're gonna see I do splatter on a lot of my paintings. You just tap your brush, especially on the flowers. And so we'll tap the brush here and get that lovely splatter. And if you're really feeling fancy, you can take some white. I have this little jar of white paint. This is called gouache. It's in between acrylic and watercolor. I add more water so that it's spreadable. And I have a number 2 brush. You can use whatever works for you. And just tap and add some of that. That can be maybe some snow that fell on our pine branches. You can even draw some snow if you wanted to on the branch once it's dry. But this is just a fun little effect. So you don't have to use this. I didn't let you know about this in the comments, or sorry, in the beginning of the video, but it's something to add if you have it around. So there you go, guys. Here is our painting today. Well, thank you so much for joining me once again, guys. Make sure to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss out on videos and live streams in the future. And again, if you're interested in taking your watercolor journey a step further, don't hesitate to check out the link in the description for my Patreon, where you get full-length tutorials, bonus content. It's a great way to support, but also to receive exclusive content not seen anywhere else. Thanks again, guys. I appreciate you all. Happy painting, and I'll see you on the next